Hello, people of New World. Happy Monday. Today, I'm going to be giving you my too early to prepare July patch guide because there's a ton of stuff you could be doing now. You could be stockpiling things you could be doing to make gold that you could do right now to ultimately get a step ahead of people when the July patch comes. So we're going to be going through a couple things. Some things are going to be speculation just because we don't have enough information yet, but there are some really solid things that you can be doing that you might not even think of. That's super easy, takes almost no time, and you will be in a great position. Now, before we get started, I want to give you some more tips so that you can be in a great position for the rest of your life, improving your skills and all that jazz. So today I want to introduce today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an incredible online learning community that offers thousands of classes for you to explore your creativity, develop new skills, and focus on your personal growth. It doesn't matter what it is, from cooking to video editing to even wilderness survival, Skillshare is there for what you're really passionate about. As many of you know, I've been on a cooking journey with Skillshare and I've really been working on improving my skills in the kitchen. But as I've been discovering more about myself, I started to realize I was lacking something: cooking intuition. I can't just walk into the kitchen, look at the ingredients in the fridge, see what's in the cabinets, and whip something beautiful up together all on my own. That's why I'm diving into kitchen confidence, practical tips for improving your cooking intuition with Julie Yoon. She taught me how to shop smartly, reduce kitchen waste, and take on my own creative influences and stop relying on traditional recipes. Julie had me covered. She even had a dedicated lesson where she would teach us how to take our mistakes and turn them into creative culinary masterpieces. Skillshare gives you the ability to focus on anything you're really passionate about. And luckily for you, you can go right now because if you use my code or the link in my description, the first 1,000 people get a free 1-month trial of Skillshare. All right, so let's start with the very first thing, and this is going to cover a couple different topics, but we're going to discuss salvaging. So right now, salvaging is kind of whatever. You get some gold from it, you get some repair parts. It's not that great. You can salvage legendary items, but you don't really get that much of a bonus out of it. So, what is the first thing that we're going to talk about here with salvaging? Well, if you're a person like me, a lot of people, what they've been doing is you start stockpiling like random legendary items or things that can turn into legendary items, right? We have them here with the hope that one day, maybe it's going to be more worth to salvage a legendary item. And thankfully, with the most recent dev update, what we found out is they're going to be making some changes to salvaging. That being, there's a way to get a perfect salvage, and that these items that are higher quality are going to be worth more. But when you have a perfect salvage, you then have the chance to get gypsum orbs. You have chances to get pieces of paper that will give you Tradeskill XP. You'll get more gold. You'll get more resources. And ultimately, it's going to be more worth to salvage higher quality items. As such, I would highly consider stockpiling all of your random legendary items you're getting and all of your named items. So there's a difference though, right? So I have like Corrupted Heart Fire Staff of the Scholar. It's not like a specific named item. It's nothing crazy. It is found in Tempest Heart, but it's just a random drop. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to kind of snowball into our next point, but the other reason to start saving things, specifically named items from expeditions, is we'll say, maybe a helmet like Conqueror's Helmet out of Tempest. If I salvage this, I will now get a new currency that they're going to be adding into the game. For each expedition, I assume there will be a separate currency, but what they're doing is you can salvage, X amount of items from Tempest, and then you can turn that into an item that is from that place that you have not gotten a drop. So like me, for instance, maybe I want Sagacious Gloves because they just never have dropped. So I have all of these random Tempest pieces in here that I've just been holding on to in all kinds of different storages, right? This is spread out across, multiple different storages, but this counts for Gen, it counts for Laz, it counts for Tempest. And then I'm not really sure how like Mutated Dynasty or Mutated Depths would work with this. Again, there's still some clarity we need, but you're better off saving those pieces, those random named pieces from those dungeons, so that you can turn it into something that maybe you've been really trying to fish for a long time. So that's the other big thing with salvaging is you will be able to craft drops that you have not had and wanted to have. And so it's just going to be more beneficial to just keep stockpiling those for now. The one thing I will say to help with your salvaging that you might not think about once this time comes is make sure you have the 100 focus perk. If you don't know what that does, whenever you're doing any salvaging, gives you 10% yield when you're salvaging. So I'm assuming that will count for any sort of materials you'll get bonus, like those dungeon specific ones, or maybe even some of the good stuff that's coming. So just another thing to keep in mind. Let's move on to the next thing. All right, next, let's talk about tuning orbs. So a lot of you probably know this yet, but unless you didn't watch the dev update, I'm stockpiling all of my tuning orbs. So you see I have like 18 mutated ones, and I'm going to start stockpiling them even harder. And I'm even considering, even the lower tier ones like Starstone, Depths, Amarine, just because I don't know what's going to come out of those, and just why not. But if you aren't aware, AGS is removing tuning orbs from the game. That's a good thing. There is the caveat of, if you are a PvE player, they're putting a 20 mutator cap per week and a 15 regular dungeon cap per day. The mutator cap I know is a little bit of a weird spot for some people, but that's for another day. Tuning orbs. This is going to, I'm assuming as well, include arena orbs, the little trials that you do out in the world. But what I am going to suggest is start stockpiling every single tuning orb that you can or that you're willing to through crafting and buying from your faction vendor. So we'll go over how you get those, but why are we doing that? Tuning orbs from their respective dungeon or mutated, I'm not sure how they're going to handle that one, but they are still doing something with it. Each one of these will turn into a dungeon specific chest, which will then contain boss drops from that expedition. So not only will you be able to fish for random boss drops that you may not have, but 2, you can turn them into perfect salvages, and 3, you can salvage them to get extra materials so that you could craft other items from the expedition that you maybe don't have. I think the most beneficial ones are probably gonna be like the Tempest ones for pieces that you just have been sitting on, but I think even more so these mutated ones, I think there's a lot of potential with them, and so I think it's going to be a really, really, really solid move to start stockpiling them. And again, as far as arena orbs, I don't know what's going to happen, but they're removing tuning orbs. So I'm going to start stockpiling those as well, just crafting them really quick. And so if you don't know how to make tuning orbs, best thing is getting 200 stone cutting. I hope a lot of you by now have that. But you can make all of these. And now it's easier than ever, right? We can buy chisels and we can buy anything pretty much that we would need as far as like the corrupted lodestone. It's not something you previously were able to do. So these chisels, lodestone, you can buy all that. I personally am going to start crafting my mutated ones, my Tempest ones, my Dynasty ones. I'm really interested to see what happens with these. And so I think I'm just going to start crafting all of my arena ones as well. And even Starstone and Amarine, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with Starstone and Amarine. Might as well just do it. Maybe there's like a weird thing where you get like craft mods from it, and Starstone has some really solid craft mods. But the Depths and Dynasty, maybe I'm holding out on the fact that there could potentially be mutated drops from these. I don't know. Again, I don't know how they're going to handle it. Maybe something will be weird, but why not make them anyway? So that's just something extra you can do. Just craft all of them. And then if you didn't know, we'll just run over here as well just to show you. You can buy them for faction tokens, and since you're doing so many PvP missions right now, you should have a lot of faction tokens, and in pretty much every stage, you will be able to buy tuning orbs, right? Like Amarine, and those ones are cheap, right? So you could even do that. You can do Starstone, Depths, Dynasty, and then you get all of your good ones here. So do that on your cooldown. It's worth it, at least for these ones, just to get some extra stuff to salvage, and it'll be really cool when you open up all these tuning orbs on patch day just to see what you get. There is the, should I be using my tuning orbs now? I don't think it hurts. I would at least, like, if you're a mutated person, run your mutated orbs. Ultimately, it's going to be one chest of boss loot, and if you use your tuning orb, it is a full dungeon run of chest loot, so, take that with a grain of salt. I just don't run as much PvE stuff, so I'm just going to keep stockpiling as much as I can. But if you want to get maybe a little bit ahead, maybe have some weird stuff happen, just stockpile your tuning orbs. Okay, and here's the real money maker potential of next patch that I might dive into more once we get more information on. But for those of you who don't know, the hybrid damage rolls, such as Assassin, like on Armor, which is Dex Int, are going to have an increased amount of stat points allocated to them. Now, here's the caveat. It's going to be all hybrid rolls except for any of them that include Con, right? So like a Nomad or a Cleric roll that is Focus Con or Con Focus will not have a higher stat pool. And what do I mean by stat pool? We'll just give like simple numbers here. These aren't the actual numbers. We don't know how much this is actually going to increase. But let's say I have on my straight Sage focus piece, I have 10 points of focus. That's the cap. Now on Assassin, what they're going to be doing is instead of having, 5 points dex, 5 points int, they're now going to give, for instance, like 20 points where you get 10 points int, 10 points dex. Do I think it's going to be that drastic? No. But I do think there is potential for a lot of hybrid based builds because more stats ultimately means more damage. And so people will be looking for these pieces. Specifically for schizo, like sword and shield builds with a hatchet, like dex strength pieces. But this is kind of like a musket buff as well because the dex int pieces are going to be very, very valuable as well. Again, I don't think it's going to be a ton, but I do think it's going to be rather significant that it will be the goal of most hybrid damage dealers to have hybrid based armor pieces. So like again, Assassin, this is a int dex split. So what am I suggesting to you? Well, as a gamer, I would highly suggest just looking for pieces to snipe that might be worth that have these splits because you never know, right? Like maybe somebody out there is going to be using something. And so looking for light armor pieces specifically with a lot of these, because a lot of the hybrid builds do not use like medium or heavy, and just seeing what is out there, right? Maybe there's just a crazy BIS piece that somebody's selling for cheap. So like, oh, it's dex int. It's like nobody's going to use it. Going through the hybrid stat pools and just taking a little peek could be super valuable to you. Now, on to the next thing, not hybrid roles, but just again, keep that in mind. So think of all the hybrid roles that would have some value. Again, it's going to be strength, dex, dex, strength, int, dex, dex, int are probably the biggest ones to really look out for right now and things I can think of off the top of my head. The only other one would be like int focus or focus int for a VG blade for like sustained blade stuff, which is what I'm kind of looking for right now. And that would be like a build that would look on me. Next thing, Lost Bane and Lost Ward. We do know with the patch there's going to be a new expedition coming, so that is going to be a lost expedition. What does that mean? Start looking for BIS Lost Ward gear that people are maybe selling. There's a lot of PvE gear out there, so be looking for Lost Ward rolls with pretty much any loadout, but specifically things that are good for ice gauntlets. A lot of ice damage is going to be good in there, so might as well keep your eyes peeled. But again, any sort of PvE piece that has Lost Ward on it could have some solid potential. So again, just it's worth scrolling through here, even just looking through to build your Lost set before people really start to catch on to the like, hey, it's coming wave, and they start upselling things for even higher. So look for BIS PvE Lost Ward gear. Now the last thing that's going to be a little bit more speculative. If you didn't know, in the dev update, they are planning to make weapon skill perks that go onto your weapons stronger than if they were to go onto armor. So for instance, let's look at Empowering Fireball. This is about 31% extra damage to your fireball if you put it on like your boots or something. Now in theory, we don't know what the percentage is, but this, if it was to go onto a fire staff, would do like 50% extra damage or something like that, or something of that nature. We don't know the total math yet, but what can you be doing now to try and get ahead? Start looking for weapons with solid rolls that include things like Empowering Fireball, right? A lot of fire staffs don't want Empowering Fireball on them right now, but if you can maybe catch a solid piece that has it already rolled on there, you could have a ton of BIS money potential, right? Like, if you got a legendary one for like 12K, maybe it's got really solid other perks, but the person's like, oh, it's kind of a dead perk with Empowering Fireball on there. Well, you could pick that up even if you spend like 20, 30K on it and probably flip it for way more once the patch hits. Same thing with like, if you think about any build, just think about what is the main thing? What is a weapon perk that is doing damage? Or for healers, like the most important ones are probably going to be Mending Protection or Fortifying Sacred Ground. Those are the only ones that would change some sort of output for us, either giving more Fortify or giving more extra healing. So specifically Mending Protection would probably be a good one. The only other big one would probably be Insatiable Gravwell that I can really think of off the top of my head. But again, we're just really looking for things that would increase the amount of output that something would do, right? Like I wouldn't want Refreshing Divine Embrace to get more cooldown reduction on my Refreshing DE when somebody's below 50% health because it's already 50%, right? That just doesn't make sense. I would rather have more Fortify, or I'd rather have more healing output. Or, for like Insatiable Grav, I'd want it to do more damage or give me more health back, right? if it's on that weapon roll. So just start looking for things, start thinking, okay, with this build, what might be good? If you got some extra time on your hands, just go snipe the market every day. Spend a little bit of time doing that. And I think that could make huge money in the future. The only other random thing that I think you could throw in is actually refining materials. So if you think about like flux, sand flux, and the next tier flux, what they're doing is they're going to add in a system to actually upgrade to like obsidian flux. So if you have a lot of room, this one would take a lot of storage space, but putting in buy orders cheaper and then flipping them higher, and it's ultimately just going to be a free money like flip. You know, if I can turn my sand flux into T3 or T5 flux, I can sell it for more money in the long run if I can just hold it somewhere that has infinite storage, right? If I just put in a ton of buy orders in one spot for like a week and then let my storage go over capacity, you're good to go. So that's pretty much everything that I can think of to get you ahead of the game for July so that you can start preparing today. And I hope you enjoyed. I hope you go use that Skillshare link and maybe learn a couple of new skills, get some extra help there. But if you need anything, you can hit me up on Twitch when I'm streaming. You can send me a Discord DM or leave a comment below. Hit the socials as well. But as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you to every single one of you beautiful people for being you. Peace.